we'll continue to filter them in. So welcome, 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 everyone. If you wouldn't mind just throwing in the chat for me where you call it or zooming in from, and let us get to know each other a little bit, and that chat will become your friend. And we'll use it every once in a while just to get a pulse to see kind of what's resonating with you all. It helps me kind of just have that point of engagement, and it always takes some time for it to load. Okay, we've got California, Chicago, New York City. All right. Hello, Pippa. Yes, Pippa's calling from the UK and then upstate New York. Awesome. Misty, I was just saying that I was in North Carolina earlier, or last weekend, visiting my aunt and seeing all the beautiful colors. It made me think of upstate New York with, I bet that you're getting some good colors right now. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm really excited that to walk through, something that's so important and near and dear to my heart of, really getting noticed, landing opportunities, and boosting your influence. So let me do a little guessing here why you might be here. So maybe it's that you've delivered results again and again, but when promotions roll around, you watch other people leapfrog ahead of you. And so this is where I want you to really engage in the chat. If that resonates with you, if that's one of the reasons that brought you in to this, put leapfrog into the chat. Or maybe it's that you're tired of over preparing, over delivering, over functioning even, and still feeling invisible. If that's resonates with you, put invisible in the chat. Or maybe your career checks every box, but it just doesn't light you up anymore. I want you to put every box into the chat. And I'm seeing some leapfrogs come in. Or yeah, every box, absolutely. Or maybe it's that something has to change and you're committed to not letting another quarter go by without doing something about it. And so if that's you, put committed. And you can also be multiple of these. Or if there's something else that really just gravitated you into this space today, I'd love to hear from you. Committed, yes, applies to you as well. Every box, every box, absolutely. All right. Well, why I think it's really important to pay attention and be here today is also some hard costs that I wanted to share with you, because the women here that I've gathered are all at a certain level in their careers. And about this time of our careers, every promotion you miss is about $15,000 to $25,000 left on the table. And this next fact was really eye-opening to me. I wish I would have known this a few years ago, but if you look at the compounding effect over 5 years, that's $75,000 to $125,000 gone. Yeah, that's a lot of money on the table. Absolutely. And like I had said, there have been points in my past where I might have just felt like, oh, it's okay, I'll wait to be recognized. Yet if I would have if somebody would have, put that in perspective for me, I would have maybe done things a little differently. So that's what we're here to do today. And that's why it's so important to be here. And just a reminder that you can be brilliant at your job and still fade into the background because life happens, things go on. And that's exactly when someone else less qualified gets the spotlight. And so I want you to imagine, if you could for a moment, a different perspective. One where you wake up energized, knowing the impact you make every single day, or being the obvious choice for that next big opportunity. Or imagine being celebrated for how different, how unique, how amazing you are. And you have all of that without playing corporate politics, without pretending to be someone you're not, without burning yourself out with more work, and without watching less experienced people get promoted ahead of you. And so, our goal today, or my goal for you, is to help you stop wasting time proving yourself and start being recognized for what you already bring to the table. It is already within you, my friends. Just sometimes it gets cloudy. So for some of you that, I've got a mix of people here. Some know me better than others, and we've had long relationships and friendships, and some are newer. So I wanted to give a little bit of a backstory of who I am and how I came to be here. I spent over 20 years in healthcare and advertising and marketing in New York City. And I started in traffic, which is essentially the mailroom, the lowest level, but really worked my way up the ladder over time. And I got the pleasure of working on mega brands. CPG is consumer packaged goods, such as Dove and Vaseline and Colgate. And I also worked on global prescription drug launches across 16 different categories, many multiple $1 million budgets. And I was one of those people that, when I moved companies, my clients and my team members wanted to come to me. That's kind of like the magnetism I had. And, I won awards, not only creative awards as like a collective, group, but also as an individual of, kind of one of those like high potential rising star accolades, which I was really proud of. And, I led cross-disciplinary teams, I facilitated workshops, I pitched and won new business, which I loved doing. And, a lot of this allowed me to travel the world that also kind of put a different spin on who I am today as well. And despite consistently exceeding my targets, I still didn't get the promotion I more than deserved. And I still watched more junior people come in with more advanced titles. It was exhausting, let alone frustrating. Oops. And so I kind of came to a crossroads where I had a decision to make. I could stay earning my very good salary, 300,000 a year, stay high performing, but overlooked, stay successful, but exhausted. Or I could listen to my biggest dreams, trust my intuition, and make sure I lived my life with no regrets. And I decided to choose me. That's what brought me here today, and in that journey, I'm so grateful because it's allowed me to have more time and spend more time with my family, my friends, my two dogs, to have the freedom to make my own schedule, to, if I want to go for a dog walk in the middle of the day, I can do that and spend more time in nature. And definitely travel is always going to be part of the scenario. And just really be able to do what I truly love. And because of that, my clients get to benefit from the ripple effect of that energy, that they become the go-to people for the biggest opportunities. And so I want to go back to the chat here for a moment and see and ask you, how would your life change if you became the go-to person for the best opportunities. We took action today to commit to making some small changes. What what might that bring you? And we talked about those hard costs. What about the, extra $125,000 in your wallet? How would that change for you? What might that look like? Money equals freedom. Yes. Sometimes we think of money as being negative and all the negative consequences, but certainly it offers the freedom to do more, right? And to have that freedom. Absolutely. Thank you, Peppa. Yeah. And so, we talk, yeah, peace of mind, absolutely. So we talked about like being in the right place, and I also want to just put it on the flip side of you're in the wrong place today if you'd rather wait for someone else to hand you the opportunities. That's not what I'm about that, and I don't get a feeling that any of the women on this call are in that mindset either. And also if you're looking for a quick fix without doing the work. And often the work is the internal work that sometimes we just get so busy we don't make space for. And also, if you're the type to get offended, that I'll invite you to keep the conversation going after today. This probably isn't for you. But if you're willing to go on the journey, let's go. So, there are a lot of coaches out there and a lot of career coaches, and they all kind of tout different things. What I did here as a little bit of fun, but also some educational purposes, is I created a top 5 list of what are the things that other career coaches tell you. And I kind of bubbled it up to the cringeworthy list. So let's go through those, and definitely let me hear from you in the chat if any of these, if you've heard them either from a coach or from a colleague, a friend, and let's just kind of share that together. So the first one is work on your executive presence. Again, this is what career coaches are telling you to get noticed, to land opportunities and boost your influence. Work on your executive presence. And there's a great clip I saw recently with Brene Brown and Adam Grant, where she's like, what is executive presence even? And that's a really great point. But for purposes of today, it's looking the part, sounding the part, acting the part. And why that misses the mark, certainly for me, and I'm sure others, is that it's focusing on the wrong thing. It's focusing on the optics over the impact you can make. And that's not leadership, that's acting. And the next one is kind of in that same realm of fake it until you make it. Anybody ever heard that one? It's where you act confident even if you're not. And why that misses the mark is because confidence doesn't really come from acting ready. It comes from proving to yourself that you already are. It's that inner knowing, that inner wisdom that you have the confidence. It's like I said, it's sometimes just gets hidden. And the third one is don't take things personally. Be assertive, be more like your male peers. And this isn't a stab at men by any means, but it's that sentiment that people tell you to hide your emotion, to toughen up, to copy someone else's leadership style. And that really, really like just burns me because that advice tells you to hide what actually makes you different, what makes you unique, what makes you magnetic, what makes you powerful. You don't need to be louder. You just need to be heard. Yeah. Thanks, Alexandra. She was saying that She agrees with the slide. I think in business, sometimes authenticity is lost because of this mentality. Absolutely. Absolutely. Another one is promote yourself more. Make sure people see you. And, it's that thinking that, and I want to say false belief that visibility equals value. Couldn't be farther from the truth. Because the issue isn't that people don't see you, it's that they don't get you. They don't understand your strengths. They are not seeing the value you're bringing, the impact that you're having. So recognition doesn't come from shouting louder. It comes from being crystal clear about the impact that you have on the business, on the team, on the company, and how you communicate that. And we're going to go through these. And the final one, which really, really just kind of, gets under my skin, is you need to work smarter, not harder. Anybody ever heard that? I've heard that a lot. And, it's that sentiment of if you just managed your time better, you wouldn't feel so burned out. And whenever I would hear that, I would think, one, they don't know the situation. They're not in my shoes. And also, it leans in kind of like a blame game scenario, which is the last thing you want to hear when you're working so hard. And so, why this really misses it is the issue isn't time, it's that you're out of fuel. And if you don't have any fuel or energy remain, you can't be that strong leader that you're meant to be. And, to the best of my app or to the best of my knowledge, no app or quick fix or hack fixes burnout. And, for that reason, none of that works. And I can say that from my perspective because I've tried some of those things and they haven't worked for me. And the clients that have come to me have tried some of those things and it didn't work for them. So let's talk about what actually does work. And I'm going to walk through each one of these. The first one, gain clarity that cuts through the noise. And when I talk about noise, it's not only the noise from society of, all of the action and kind of fast-paced world that we're living in, but it's also cutting through the noise in your own head. That kind of self-doubt and, second guessing yourself. So we're going to talk about that. The next thing is rebuilding your confidence the way that you don't have to fake it. So, really looking at that inner confidence that already exists so you don't have to fake it. And it's that authentic self that, Alexandra had mentioned in the comments. And the next one is refocusing your energy so you can lead without losing yourself in the process. And then finally, own your impact. So you stop being the best kept secret, because in this instance, you do not want to be the best kept secret. So let's dive in. So gaining clarity that cuts through the noise. So real clarity isn't about thinking harder. It's about getting honest about what actually feels right to you. What is it that you truly, truly want, and getting crystal clear on that. And most women that I work with, they're not lost, they're overloaded. They've been moving so fast, they've stopped asking if the direction still feels right. Every option sounds reasonable, but none of them feel like them or the right decision. And this is something I hear from my coaching clients all the time. Coaching creates that space to pause for a moment and receive some questions, to think about things from a different perspective. In our daily lives, when we're running from meeting to meeting, eating lunch at our desk, we don't have time to take that pause and really think. And what happens when you don't take that pause is that a lot of the different scenarios just kind of play and on replay in your head. Should I stay? Should I leave? Should I pivot? Should I go for the promotion? And each one feels, equally exciting, but also risky. And it's that mental tug of war that really drains your energy more than any other project could, because it continues to swirl not only during your working hours, but it swirls when you go home, and it swirls in the middle of the night when you're trying to sleep. So clarity starts when you stop chasing every potential path and get really honest about what actually fits you. What do you really, truly want? And when you cut through that noise, the next step stops feeling risky and it actually starts feeling obvious and easy. So I want to share some social proof in each one of these. So I brought some real world examples, and I started with me. When I decided to leave corporate, I worked with a coach who helped me uncover what I now call the ripple effect. And I use it with many clients because it really changed everything about how I define fulfillment. So when I left, I was crystal clear that it was the right decision and I needed to go. It was that slide where I kind of had the fork in the road, right? I knew I needed to leave, but I left with no plan. And so I needed to partner with somebody to help me crystallize what was it that I truly wanted and why was that important? And then, that ripple effect is, why is it important to others? Who the other people affiliated in my life, my spouse, my friend, my parents, even coworkers. And then how does that translate to others? So getting that clarity has been my anchor or my North Star that keeps me going, especially when, challenges arise. And then, Denise is one of my clients who she came to work with me after being laid off, and she was exhausted and really afraid that she wouldn't find the right job. So what she had started doing was she just started applying to everything, spending hours on interview prep, all for things that weren't a fit. And so once we started working together, we got super clear on what it was she didn't want and what it was that she did want. And that's when the right opportunity, actually, there was two of them that came at once, materialized. And she actually had the two, kind of in a bidding war for her because she walked into the interviews more energized instead of anxious because she was clear on what she wanted. And she was able to land the position that she wanted most, and she committed no more settling. She learned a big lesson through that. And why, the importance of gaining clarity to get noticed and land opportunities is because when you define success on your own terms, you stop getting distracted by everyone else's version of it. And I brought in some respected thought leaders that I've am definitely have done a lot of reading with and studying with. And one is Simon Sinek, and he calls the leading with the why. So staying focused on what really matters. Or Brene Brown, I'm a huge fan, describes it as living in alignment, alignment with your values, with your strengths, your purpose, not other people's approval. And that's something really important. And then Tony Robbins describes it as making decisions from truth, not fear. Because I think we can all agree that when you make a decision from a place of fear, never ends up being the best decision. Okay, next one is rebuilding confidence. You don't have to fake. So important. The women I work with don't actually lack confidence. It's just that they've learned to hide it behind overthinking and over preparing. Like I said, it's there. It's just hidden underneath all of this over functioning. And it's somewhere between delivering great work, managing everyone else's needs, and trying to keep up appearances. They stop trusting their own instincts. And that leads to second guessing how they should, sound in a meeting. They maybe hold back ideas that could move things forward or stay quiet just to keep the peace. And the irony there is they're usually the most capable people in the room. Yeah. What a shame. What a shame. So real confidence isn't about being louder and flashier. It's being steady, like from your core of knowing who you are and what you're meant to do. And it shows up when your words match your values and your actions reflect your worth. It's when you stop editing yourself to fit someone else's version of success or what a leader should be. And you start showing up as the one you already are. So real confidence isn't about faking it until you make it. Absolutely not. It's about remembering what's already there within you and finally letting it show for others to see. So I've got some more social proof here of why rebuilding confidence really helps you to get noticed and land opportunities. So Lisa was one of my clients who she used to compare herself to this younger, louder, she called him a rock star in the office. And what we found was that by doing that, she was elevating him and diminishing her confidence. And it started to really show up in the way that she started to question whether her quieter style would even stand out and would she get noticed for that promotion. She was wanting a promotion. And so through our work together, she realized actually that her calm, trusted advisor energy wasn't a weakness at all. It was actually her edge. And so once she started owning that steadiness, the clients began seeking her out. And it was that internal partnerships started to grow stronger. The client referrals came naturally. And she no longer felt like she had to compete to be seen, which was huge. And another one of my clients, she used to think being heard meant mirroring her male peers, being firm and fast and direct. And once she leaned into her natural style of being curious and creative and collaborative and certainly more feminine, she noticed people responded differently. People were more open to collaborate. Ideas were flowing, conversations opened up, and her confidence became effortless because it was who she is. She was leaning into her natural strengths, and she's actually become the go-to person in her organization to address kind of big changes that need to take place because of that natural style. So proud. Tremendous work on her part. So why this works is when you build your career around what makes you uniquely you, confidence stops being a performance and it starts being proof. Again, it is within you. So Adam Grant calls this the quiet confidence, the kind that comes from knowing your value and staying curious instead of defensive, which I think is such an important delineation there. And then you might be familiar with Amy Cuddy's work. She talks a lot about the power posing. So when you feel the confidence in your body, in your mind, and also in your voice, the purpose comes through and everything is in sync. And it's obvious to others. Okay, moving right along here. Refocusing energy so you can lead without losing yourself. So here, this is about protecting your energy. And I want to relay that that is not a selfish act. It's strategic. It's essential, actually, because you can't lead or create or inspire yourself or others when you're running on empty. You're exhausted. You don't think clearly. So the most women that I work with, they don't need more hours in the day, as I had said. They need energy that they can count on because they're often the ones that are holding everything together at work, at home, and yet they're always feeling that they're constantly behind. There's always that looming checklist of things that still need to be done. And the pace often can look really productive from the outside, but it's just slowly erasing their focus and, more importantly, their joy on the inside. So energy starts to come back when you notice where it's leaking. So, think of a dam and you need to plug the leaks. And it might be the meetings that drain you, that you really don't need to be at. Or the people who pull you off track, maybe, I'm sure everyone can relate to that person that catches you in the hallway unexpectedly and, has a long dialogue with you that maybe just starts a ripple effect, a negative ripple effect for the rest of your day. Or maybe it's the habits that, have you completely fried and useless by Friday. Therefore, on your weekend, you don't have any energy to do the things that you really want to do. Yeah. And once you see those patterns and you have greater awareness, you can start working in a way that really restores you instead of running you down. And when you start protecting your energy, you stop running on fumes and start showing up clear and calm and focused. And work stops feeling like survival and starts feeling intentional, inspiring, fun, even. So let's look at some social proof. One of my clients, Kim, she's is the practice manager for a large practice, and she created an environment where she just allowed to be available for 24/7. Anybody could come and interrupt her, and it really was starting to frustrate her, and she just felt diminished at the end of each day because she didn't feel like she was making any leeway. So what we did is we worked together on creating a boundary to really, close her door and prioritize the high impact work that need to be done during that time. And now she's able to end her days like proud that she actually was able to do things that were most important and not just feel depleted or exhausted, frustrated, diminished because she wasn't getting what needed to be done. And Leah, another one of my clients, she was constantly reacting to everyone else, messages, meetings in the hallways, people's demands. And what we had worked on together is, while some of those things were part of her job description, she needed to be available for folks. But the way that we were able to make it work for her was that we were able to put in little time, like little breaks where she could refuel her energy. So we had little breaks for her to reset her energy, whether that was listening to some music, going for a walk. And when she came back, it was kind of a fresher perspective. She felt calmer, she felt clearer, and she felt more in control of how to best navigate some of these interruptions. And of just a fun story about her. She's somebody who I never heard her say protecting her energy as part of her, vocabulary, but now, that's a regular thing when we have our check-ins that she's always like, I've been protecting my energy by, taking these breaks and it's really making a difference. That's what I live for, guys. That's the kind of things that I love for. And so, why this works is that when your body and brain and the boundaries that you've set all work together, you don't just get more done. You get the right things done because you're able to better prioritize the things that are going to be the most impactful because you have that space and energy to think more clearly. Brene Brown calls this setting boundaries with integrity. So really honoring what matters most. And Jonah Berger, he wrote the book Contagious, calls it clarity of attention, where you're really focusing where it counts. And my own energy teacher or coach, Lara Riggio, really has instilled in me, and I, carry this forward to my clients, that small resets really can do a tremendous amount of benefit to rewiring your energy. Because when your system is, kind of overloaded, you make decisions from a place of like chaos. But when your system is calmed and emotionally regulated, that's when your strength returns because it is more closer to who you are and you're able to really tap into your inner wisdom. Okay, final one, gang. You're hanging in there. Thank you. So, this is what I like to think of as kind of tying it all together is owning your impact so you can stop being the best kept secret. Okay, recognition doesn't come from doing more or talking louder. We talked about that. It comes from owning your value and communicating it clearly. So the women that I work with aren't invisible because they lack results or lack skills. It's because they're too busy delivering those things to talk about them. They're more focused on the doing, and they're leading the projects, they're fixing the problems, they're mentoring the teams and holding it all together. That's what we love to do. But no one sees the full picture. So owning your impact doesn't mean being that you have to be a self-promoter. It means connecting the dots for others, making it easy for them to see your impact. Okay, making it easier and helping them to see the difference you make. It's speaking up in meetings, it's naming your results, and it's standing behind your ideas. And when I talked about like this is the full circle, that's because you have your confidence, because you're being authentically you, and you have the courage to stand behind your ideas. And all of that isn't bragging, it's leadership. And when you start showing up that way, people really start seeing you differently. And so some social proof, again, I used myself as one of the examples. I learned the hard way on this one. I used to believe that great leaders always put their team first. And I poured myself into helping everyone else succeed. And I didn't realize how much that overshadowed my own impact. Remember, I had said I was the person that I would change companies and my team would want to follow and my clients would want to follow. A lot of it was because I poured so much of myself into them, almost at the risk of overshadowing my own impact. And luckily, I had a manager who really helped me see this. And once I started sharing my results more clearly, especially with the C-suite, the recognition and the opportunities followed. So it wasn't anything that I changed my behavior. It was more how I just chose to communicate my impact to make sure it wasn't that I was holding everybody else up at my expense. And then Christy is one of my clients. She had been overlooked for multiple promotions. She was wanting to make a cross department move within her company. And it wasn't because she lacked results, but it was because no one really understood her impact, the impact in her current job, and then also the impact that she could bring to the new position. And once she learned to tell her story more clearly, she landed that cross department role. And because, as again, full circle, the confidence that she had in her delivery, she also was able to negotiate a relocation package. And she really felt that her career matched her capability now. And we're continuing to work with each other on like really upskilling her leadership skills. And so, why this works, again, owning your impact to get noticed, land opportunities, is that when you share your value with honesty, authenticity, and purpose, people finally see the difference you make. And it comes across really authentic. So, Simon Sinek reminds us that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that is such an important differentiation for me in terms of like really slicing through owning your impact. And then Sally, who wrote the book How and Rise, says if you don't speak about your value, that's telling people that you don't value it yourself. And so again, that was another really nice way of kind of solidifying this in my brain. And so, we talked about what other career coaches kind of, that top 5 cringeworthy list. And then I talked about things that really actually work. And those are the things, supported by, real world proof in my own client success cases, as well as my own, and then really backed by, some of the prominent thought leaders in the business. And so with that, I want to introduce you to Spark. Spark is a high impact coaching experience for accomplished women who want to be seen, valued, and genuinely re-energized by their work again. And it's for women who've achieved success, yet they crave more clarity or more confidence and more fulfillment. And certainly without the constant pressure to do more. And so when I talk about this, it's not just another coaching program, it's really a turning point. Because the women I work with don't need more advice. They've read the books, they've sat through the trainings, they've listened to the podcasts. We've all done that. But what they really need is change that shows up how they think, lead, and feel every day. And so my Spark program isn't about just cramming more onto your plate. You do not need that. It's about clearing the mental clutter that's been holding you back so you can finally move forward with focus and confidence. And by the end of our working together, you'll feel re-energized, clear on what the next step is, and proud of the direction you're headed. And here's a little bit deeper into what that transformation actually looks like. My program is 12 weeks long. And by the end of it, you'll stop second guessing yourself and start making bold, clear decisions again. You'll communicate your value with calm confidence, no more over explaining or second guessing. You'll protect your energy and lead from focus instead of exhaustion. You'll feel seen, respected, and recognized for the work you already do. And you know exactly what you want next, and you have the courage to go after it. And what's included in the program and why it matters is group coaching, which offers real-time accountability and gives you that real-time practice of being seen and heard and valued in a room that feels safe and strategic. And there's one-on-one strategy sessions with me, which offers you personal guidance to really, we tailor every insight to your real world career, specifically to what you need to move forward. So you do it with clarity and intention. And then there's community support that you'll never feel like you're doing this work alone. You'll grow alongside other accomplished women navigating similar challenges. And I'm a big person of practical tools and things that, kind of break down complex ideas into smaller, achievable actions. And you get all of this, plus access to the Grow and Glow series, which we just launched last month, which I'm super excited about. This actually helps you integrate those transformational shifts. So you don't just experience the shifts, you actually get to nurture and embody them. And so what I've done is I've collaborated with experts that I actually use for myself, some newly and some that I've worked with for years, that have really given me my edge in making a transition and forward momentum. So Pippa, who was on here earlier, she is an intuitive guide. She walks us through guided meditations where you're able to tap into your intuition. The one that she did last month was on meeting your future confident self. So what are the wisdom that you need to get from them? And then Lucy is who is doing this month's Grow and Glow series. She is someone who is just packed with power. She marries mantras and affirmations with movement and voice. It's that power posing, if you will, of like really getting confidence comfortable in your body. And then Allie will be doing our series in November. She will be doing sound bowl treatments where it's really going to be opening up your, zone of creative genius so you can tap into your intuition in a stronger way. So these programs to 3 months. And so reinforce, we talked at the beginning, the hard cost, right? Of, of non-action. And this is a reminder of the things the transformation that you actually get in the program, the no more second guessing, the communicating your value, the protecting your energy, that feeling of feeling seen and respected and recognized. And you know exactly with crystal clear clarity what's next. And so the next step from here is that I invite you all to apply for the Spark program. Because this is a small community, I want to make sure that I curate the most intentional group. I had mentioned about the group coaching being in that safe environment and very supportive of others. I think that, yeah, Audrey, thank you, has put a link in the chat, or you can scan the QR code. And I really encourage you to do this. What it is you're going to be taken to my booking page, and it's just going to be book a call with me so we can talk one-on-one, so I can learn a little bit more about what is your unique challenge that you're going through. What are the things that you're really struggling with? And you're going to get a ton of value from this, regardless if you participate in the program or not, because that's going to be my opportunity